All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Product Spotlight. I am Dave Cooper, where we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems, to building science, to building codes, to the tech used to build it better. But before we get started today, we want to thank our sponsors. So thank you to Forward Solutions Group, Ben Hershey, Joe Butler. They are a team of more than 175 years of experience developing and specifying manufacturing for panelized and volumetric modular industries with best practices in development and implementation. They offer consulting with investors, developers, manufacturers, builders, and using off-site manufacturing methods. Forward Solutions is driving companies to succeed where others have failed. So to reach out to them, please reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. Once again, thank you guys. Been working with you for a while now. You are the best out there, and I'm proud that you are a sponsor of ours. So hopping into it, this is a great show to sponsor because we have MiTek on our show today, which is going to be a lot of fun. And we are going to talk with Steve McFall, the product portfolio manager of Lateral Systems. Now, you may wonder what this is all about. What does MiTek do? That was my question. Man, was I surprised. So why don't we, without further ado, bring in Steve McFall. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good, Dave. How about you?
Man, I'm having a great time. I'm telling you, I'm in the Hudson Valley, New York, up here with Bensonwood, and we're doing a house raising with them at 3 o'clock. We'll be back over there going live again. And you know what? Components such as what MiTek makes and I guess consults on, and the solutions you provide are all part of systems that we're using in the field every day. I just don't think everybody understands it. Before we get into that, though, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So please hit that like and share button right now. And if you're not a subscriber to YouTube, please subscribe. And if you are not following Steve McFall on his social channels, such as LinkedIn, please go there and follow him as well. All right, Steve, let's jump into this. But before we get started, I want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out the gory stuff from the hospital. You only have 3 minutes to do it. Go ahead.
3 minutes. I was hoping for 3 hours, but I'll do my best. So appreciate the time, Dave, and a chance to help share some things from MiTek perspective. So me, on the personal side, I'm a structural engineer by training. That's what I went to school for, and how I entered into the construction industry. Prior to that, put myself through college, building and framing homes in a small town in Midwest of the U.S. in the lovely state of Wisconsin. Currently joining you from Colorado, where my wife and I have lived for the past 20 years. 15 of those years I've worked for MiTek as part of their software group for a number of those years, as well as in some capacities from a product perspective, similar to the role I'm in now when it comes to overseeing some of our lateral systems. So yeah, 15 years of a lot of fun. And I think, as we've chatted a little bit, one of those pieces that maybe some folks out in the market don't understand is the breadth of what MiTek really does look to do to help service the industry. So happy to be here, and happy to answer any questions that you've got for me. So.
Oh man, do I have questions? I mean, we are loaded up. So, we had a chance to talk offline, and my jaw almost hit the table when you started talking about all the things that you do. You showed us a presentation, but here's what I thought. I thought MiTek was just like Simpson Strong Tie. I thought it was just metal to metal. You sell metal, they sell metal, brackets, braces, things of that nature. But it's so much more than that. I mean, you guys are not only into the metal products, you guys are also a solution-based company working with your builders and developers and other people in the industry to continually grow. And that includes other things like software. So why don't we jump into this a little bit, and why don't you start walking us through who is MiTek, what is MiTek all about, and what are the solutions that everybody probably doesn't know that you have?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And Dave, one thing, it's like, especially with the work that you do from an offsite perspective and a modular perspective out there in the industry, so much of that is tied into the DNA of who MiTek is historically. And that's one of those things that when people hear MiTek, there might be a variety of different companies even that might pop to mind. Some might think of, the core of a lot of our historical business, that's in roof trusses and the connector plates that make those roof trusses, and in floor trusses and wall panels and things along that lines. Obviously, a lot of tie-ins to offsite construction, and how do we take advantage of things we can do in a factory environment to help speed up what actually happens out on a job site. So when people think of MiTek, that is a lot of times the first thing that they think of. Just to touch on the breadth, that same DNA exists even in commercial solutions. When I say commercial, it's like commercial buildings, and so we're talking about what's offsite look like for mechanical systems that move air on very large commercial buildings, skyscrapers. That's something that is part of the MiTek family, and that's something that I think people may not always be aware of. And so when I think of MiTek, what I think about is a company that really looks to serve the construction industry, and very broadly across a lot of different elements of that construction industry, and truly looks to identify how technology, the usage of software, products, services, helping to support processes that need to be developed on the industry, how all that comes together to really keep the industry pushing forward and advancing, as we all know that it needs to, based on demand for housing and whatever else super high, and our capacity and ability to meet that, is strained right now. And it just through continual innovation, we'll continue to knock down those barriers and keep growing. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have an affordable housing issue, right now in front of us. We have lumber prices like we've never seen before in front of us, but luckily enough, that has dropped down. I believe it was from 20% to 9% cut. I had to look at my note here. So, they went, the feds dropped the rate, I guess, or the what do they call it? The tariff from 20% to 9% just recently, thanks to Greg Ugaldi. He sent me that update yesterday. All right. So Steve, let's get into this. You have a bit of a presentation. I think people are going to be very surprised to see what you have to show us and what we're going to talk about today. So you want to jump into it? Absolutely.
Let's go for it. And, just for the audience, please know that as part of this, we're going to go through and I'm going to look to give a kind of an overview just to help understand some of the breadth of MiTek because of the role that I'm in right now. And with regards to some of our lateral product solutions, we really are going to focus on that as part of this session of how the offsite elements and our lateral solutions come together as part of a couple projects that we'll discuss in, just to help people see not only is this things that we talk about doing out in the industry, but what's it actually look like? And these are just a couple projects from this last year, even. So it's very timely, very relevant to show how people are changing this. So I'll get started first and foremost. Just when people think of MiTek, just know it's not just a company that's based in one aspect of the industry or even in one region of the globe. You can see based on the stats that are on the screen, we have a wide presence in multiple markets across the globe, which allows us to be very unique in how we learn from other regions and what they're doing from a construction perspective, and how we can bring that to other markets, whether that's things that we do in like the US market that could maybe apply over to the European market or down the AP, or vice versa, right? And that's mass timber as an example. Mass timber is something not new globally, but something that is maybe a little bit newer in from a US perspective of how that entertains or it enters into the offsite market and stuff. And so we have partners around the globe that allow us to integrate and connect some of those solutions together. So I wanted to make sure and bring that up just so that people could understand, this is not just a US based company. We're very global. So.
Right. And hey, just touching on mass timber, that's a good place for me to plug 3 o'clock today, because we just installed mass timber post and beams live at our 10 o'clock show. And we're going to show it again at 3 o'clock if anybody'd like to tune in for that with Benson Wood.
Yep, and a ton of innovation that's going on that front with really how does that mass timber really play a critical role? How do we make sure that it's the right solution for different scenarios? And all those things are very important. And from MiTek perspective, we're as much about learning from the industry and then trying to apply that into how we can help support things as much as anything. So,
sure. All right.
The next piece, just to kind of, when we talk about this breadth of things that MiTek looks to do, this is a way that it kind of compartmentalizes it down so people can really understand a little bit of that flavor. So engineered products, that runs anything from a connector plate that's going on to a wood truss or a floor truss, down through our MiTek Builder products line, which is structural connectors. And that's, Dave, to your reference from Simpson, a phenomenal company. They do a great job in servicing the marketplace. And that is where we have some overlaps in how we do look to service the industry is in some of those products that are needed out there. there's a lot that's wrapped in those engineered products on the MiTek side beyond that, though, and it gets down into HVAC solutions, and like Homan & Bernard's another company that's flashing, and there's lots of companies that really factor in, and lots of offerings that factor in that engineered products. That next category over there is when we talk about software, especially on that off-site front, we have to, as an industry, be able to connect digitally what needs to happen to drive machinery and automation out in out in a plant to actually build components and whatever else. That's something that MiTek has decades of experience in doing, in creating those solutions on the software front that help to drive that machinery. In addition, MiTek sees that it has to go beyond that, and we really need to be very holistic in how the industry approaches the entire design and build process from the beginning all the way through the end, right? And some of our software solutions even include things that are ERP-based solutions that home builders use to run their business on a day in and day out basis, right? And it includes other things from a BIM perspective that allow home builders to go through and do things like solve options on options, and all of these complex business operations that are critical for them to do efficiently. And then, as you can see, that has to tie into a manufacturing aspect as well, because in the end, we want to be able to partner those things together. So a very big, a wide stable of software offerings that MiTek takes to the market and continuing to grow. We really view that as a key to help the industry continuing to advance. So last two that I'll touch on just real quick there, just to round it out, is on the services side. Right. Services on the MiTek front, and again, something that people may not be aware of. When we talk about things like service for our lateral system in particular, we work closely with design professionals, the engineers of record who are going through and doing the design development of a project and looking for, hey, MiTek, do you have a solution that might help with ABC problem, right? And that's where we go in and really help to consult with them on that front. That's one form of service that we do. We even do design services for trusses, where some of our component manufacturers, who are a core part of our business, they will send in the truss designs. MiTek has, as you saw, a number of engineers on staff that will go through, review those designs, provide sealing for it, and ship back out to the marketplace. Right. So those are some of the things historically, services-wise, that MiTek has taken in the market. It also includes things where we know that sometimes businesses just struggle with finding enough resources to do tasks, maybe like drafting, maybe like BIM modeling, maybe even architectural rendering and things like that. Right. So that's even something that MiTek looks to offer to the marketplaces from a service perspective, just trying to fill those voids that businesses are struggling, saying, we know we need to deliver this to our customers. We're struggling with finding the resources, and we look to partner up with them on those fronts and help to close the gap, if you will.
So let me ask you, Steve, so when you offer these engineering, I think I saw on the previous page, it was like 1,000+ engineers, enacross the country or around globally. Trusses, is it wood-based, metal-based, a mixture?
It's a mixture. Yep. Okay. There's two different business components, I guess, on the MiTek side of the ground. One is on the largest areas with the wood frame solutions, and that's where we closely partner with our component manufacturer customers. And again, some of them handle all their own design work and stuff, and sometimes they ask us to supplement it. And we also have Aegis, who does it from a cold form steel perspective, more commercial facing, typically things on those lines. But yes, whether it's cold form steel or wood, we have solutions that work into both material types that are used in projects. Right. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's super important to point out, right, that people understands that you're on both sides of that with wood and steel. So I personally wouldn't have thought that. So that's great to know.
Yep. And the last one that I'll touch on then just real quick, Dave, is, from an automation perspective, and as we walk across this, it's like, okay, we got to have products, we got to have software that helps, us to digitize what we're needing to build. And in the end, we need to be able to have machinery that can help build those components. And the actual manufacturing, the designing, the R&D, and as well as the building of those pieces of machinery and taking those to market is also something MiTek is heavily engaged in a core part of our business, right? And so that's that thing where when you go back and say, MiTek has a unique viewpoint on this industry because of all these different facets that we actually look to try to help and get engaged in, and how we're able to stitch together this combination of solutions to really, help the industry continue to move forward. So very unique offering.
Right. Love it. Love it. All right, let's jump into this, man. Let's see everything we have, because we talked about BIM and, and the services you guys offer, talking about automation, offsite design, fabrication solutions. So this is some of what we're going to talk about right now and how you guys play a role in this. And this is, I think, going to be exciting.
Yep. And so what I thought might be helpful is that, just to put together a little bit of a collage that shows some of the different project types, as well as some of the products that get used in, and just to speak to it a little bit more. And so what you'll see is, there's a wide range of building types, as well as different construction methods that are being used on some of these. Obviously, you got down in the bottom right corner, you got the Freedom Tower out there. And that's a case of, no one probably thinks that's made out of wood, and it's not. Thankfully, it's not made out of wood, but it's something that's one of those elements that MiTek brings to the table with Benson, who is a curtain wall company that has tremendous success out in that commercial industry. And they actually were the manufacturer and the provider for that curtain wall system on the Freedom Tower. Okay, and that's a MiTek partner. That's a MiTek, not a partner. That's a part of the MiTek company that allows us to interact at a building like that, all the way down to something that might be a single family home. And then you look at, how does modular fit in there? Well, modular can apply to some of those commercial buildings. There's people that look to do it from a residential perspective. Those are all things that we look to engage in and help provide solutions. When you look at, just because we're talking about lateral products a little bit here, if I can, where the second picture over from the bottom right corner, that's actually a single family home. It's a custom home. And that's one home that you can see a wide range of very technical face solutions with our Hardy frame shear panels. We have some moment frames in there. We've got a brace frame that's going in there. There's a lot of different things that all have to come together to be able to deliver some of these projects that are being built. And that piece is, when those things get more complicated, that's where this offsite element really shines and really can help accelerate what's going on. And you'll see, we'll talk about the project a little bit more. That's referenced in that in the image that has the text on it about being 6 weeks early. That was a large multifamily project, and it's the one that's shown down in the bottom left corner. And the usage of offsite construction was able to deliver 6 weeks early of completing on the framing schedule of what was originally planned when they started it. Okay. Yeah. Just to put that in context, when talking with the general contractor on that, is a case that was made. We never finish something ahead of schedule, right? So not only to finish on schedule, but actually be able to say we did something 6 weeks faster than what we planned. Yeah. That's a huge testament to the value that offsite can bring to the market. Okay. Yep. So I thought, Dave, this is something that it just kind of helps to paint that picture of the wide range of projects, the wide range of solutions that we look to try to help support the market with.
Well, here's, Steve, being my background modular and offsite construction for 20 years, when you talk about the moment frames and the shear wall bracing and everything else, one of the biggest things, and I was a coastal builder in New England, building on islands, that shear wall and engineering and codes, it's getting more and more difficult for a site framer or a modular or a panelized framer to meet the codes and give the customer the openings that they want.
Yeah.
Right. Because we have to be so far off the corners, and, in offsite, the shear wall calculations are not done the same as typically a site built home because we're building in sections. They look at it a little bit different. So some of the solutions I know we're going to see moving in here and what you're talking about here are some of the reasons why the process is being able to be sped up in the field, and how you guys are contributing to getting through the codes, getting through the engineering, getting through all the regulations to make a successful project happen.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Dave. And that's that case of the complexity of the buildings that are being built is going to continue to go up, not down, right? They're not going to get simpler overnight all of a sudden. And so and at the same time, just like you mentioned, that desire for people to have a structure that they enjoy living in, with lots of glass, with large open rooms. Those things introduce design challenges that require more technical solutions to really come into the mix. And then at the same time, when you mix those design demands in with the construction schedule demands, now all of a sudden you've got that perfect catalyst of folks saying, okay, we need to think of a way that allows us to really take advantage of how we can design things digitally that are complicated, get them created in a factory environment and then assembled on site, and it solves a number of challenges across these different structures that we're seeing. So no, could not agree more. We're seeing the exact same thing time after time in all parts of the U.S. and globe, honestly. So
sure, love it.
So just, and this speaks to some of that point when sometimes people get excited about lateral products, Dave. I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But for those of us that come from a structural engineering background, that is something that is a challenge in every structure, right? That's not just something that has to exist in a multifamily commercial building. Every residential building also has a lateral system. How it goes about being designed may vary, just simply based on code requirements and where it's located, the type of elements that it's exposed to, so on and so forth. Our products are really intentionally designed to really service two core things. One is that they meet the engineering and the performance requirements that are needed. Okay, and that's when you look at I'll take an example of the Frankenstein picture there in the bottom right. Looks like people are like, what is that thing? That's a damper frame, something that's used in commercial much more than residential. But at the same time, as people start evaluating what's the life cycle of this building we're creating, how do we really want it to perform over a number of years? How do we want to reduce our risk to being exposed to shutdowns of a building, or a building having to be taken out of service and stuff? Those have real economic impacts. And so there are solutions that are being created and are coming out that might seem a little far-fetched right now, but it's because as an industry, we're really starting to identify the economics of some of these structures, and not just the construction cost initially, but long-term. What does that really look like, right? Quality, offsite has a close tie into being able to deliver a high level of quality based on a controlled environment, whether it's modular or something that's components and stuff that are being built. Very important for long-term project performance and success that we're seeing. So this is just some of the different lateral products we have that I wanted to talk about. They're designed to meet an engineering capacity and performance requirement, but then also be thoughtfully designed to be able to integrate easily with wood frame structures or cold form steel structures, right? Our systems are actually used in both in most cases. And that's something that you can see, whether it's a threaded rod tie down system that you see in that upper left corner.
Right.
Why do we do those systems? Well, you can see in that image, wood shrinks over time, right? That's just something that has to be dealt with as part of the life cycle of that project. And that's something that, our solutions really help a building owner know, as this shrinks, the systems are going to remain intact. The performance of the building is not going to be impacted, because MiTek has solutions that have been thoughtfully designed to not only meet initial demand that has to be designed for, but then long-term serviceability as different things shift inside the structure. And the last piece that really puts it over the top, super simple installation, right? That's a key piece, because at some point, as that skilled labor out in the field is maybe challenged in some areas, that's something where people need very simple solutions to be able to quickly go through and install that meet the requirements design-wise. So I just wanted to make sure and touch on that the products don't just get created this would be fun, let's go see what we could do to create a new product. We work closely with those out in the design community, as well as the people actually building the structures on site, and look to understand the challenges they're facing and how do we innovate solutions that meet those challenges. That's the spirit of what MiTek looks to really do in the marketplace.
So, interesting enough, I got a couple things, and then I have a follow-up question. But, I look at that the through bolts that you have there. We were on a site down in Washington, D.C., which was a multi-family, multi-story modular product that was put on a podium, right? Yep. It was an infill lot on a steel podium. And they had those through rods all the way through the building, tying it down to that steel podium. So that's another use case for what those are being used for. And even today with Benson, Benson wood at the set we're doing, they're using, brackets similar to this to tie it to the foundation. You got the clips, or what, those are called in the corner. And then I see also that building where you have the metal to the right. That's what I was talking about previously. That's that brace wall, to get those shear wall calculations in the corner if you want to have those bigger openings and have less, going, because the days of making a window that goes all the way in a corner of a home is getting harder and harder and harder without using some sort of system.
No, you're spot on, and it's a case of, when we talk about like some of these frame products that are down in the bottom row that's going across there, the damper frame over in the far right, that's really, think about it as a shock absorber for a house, right? No different than your shocks on your car. As you go through an event and something happens, there is a way to dissipate that energy so it doesn't actually cause damage to the project, right? And that's what the function of some of those things are. And that's like in a house, and it's like, well, yeah, in some homes the finishes are that expensive, right? And the amount of glass is that high that it's like, that's the type of solution that's really needed. That piece of, when we talk about those frames down below, those were specifically invented because we know people want larger glass, and at the same time, us structural engineers, we love having good stiffness elements out around the outside of a building, as opposed to trying to load everything up back on the inside, because we know that overall performance of that structure is higher. So that was one that specifically was saying, we know the design challenge, we know the framing challenge that exists, actually created by a guy that's both has an engineering background and also knows his way around a job site with a hammer, right? And so it's like, it's a very good combination of skills to be able to put together to bring some of those solutions to life. So
so here's my follow-up questions, right? So I'm hearing all these solutions. You guys, how do you come up with solutions? How is the R&D done? If I'm a builder out in the field and I think I have a problem or a great idea, do I reach out to you and say, listen, I mean, this is over and over again, I don't have a solution for it. Is that how opportunities get presented to you? Or do you have R&D people in the field constantly working with people to see where things can be improved?
Yeah, it's a mix of both. Honestly, it's a case, and literally that was a phone call on Monday morning that I got with regard from a contractor asking about, hey, have you guys ever thought about XYZ? Because they understand what our approach and process of engaging the marketplace looks like, and they're like, if I see something that I know is going to help me succeed as a business owner, and I think MiTek can help deliver that, then they'll reach out and ask. And we have very open dialogues, with folks out in the field to help communicate those things back. And then at the same time, it's like from an R&D perspective, there's one of those elements because we're engaged in helping to consult on some of the design challenges maybe an engineer of record is having with a lateral system. That is great information for us to see about, okay, on this job, we saw they had this particular challenge. They may not be raising that of saying, hey, it'd be great if we had a different solution. But because we're engaged in that type of a dialogue with them, then that's something where we can just, more organically also identify some of those opportunities. But all of it is based around truly understanding how buildings have to fit together and how they have to perform. And that's what really drives it. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, hey, let's take a minute and just get to a couple comments. People are just saying hi from all over. I want to engage them a little bit, see if anybody has any questions out there yet. But let's hop through. So we have good evening from Aberdeen, UK, Dr. Benaji Amar. Hey, doctor, how are you today? Thank you for joining us. We got Craig Campbell. Hey, from the UK. Hey, UK is in the house today,
awesome.
Huh? I love it. Global. Good morning, all. Joel Hutchins from Revia. What's happening, Joel? Joe, I bet you find this interesting, and I'm sure you have questions on these things. Hey, Lisa Render's joining us. Hey, Lisa, great topics. Thanks, Dave. All right, let's keep going. Oh, here we got Tim Sims from the Treehouse. I don't know. Do you know Tim Sims?
I do not know. Well,
so Tim Sims, you might run into him at a Housing Innovation Alliance event or other with John Burns Real Estate Consulting, but he is not kidding. His office is a treehouse. But it's one of those treehouse like you see on Treehouse Masters. So, it's a nice treehouse.
I'm jealous.
So, I am too. All right, let's keep going through it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you do have questions, now's the time to start putting them in. We're going to have another Q&A and a hello session here in just a few minutes. Yep. All right, back to it.
Awesome. So part of this, I just wanted to, again, just take a moment. There's certain things depending on which part of the globe you're joining from, as well as even just which part of the U.S. you might be joining from. Sometimes scale of challenges that people out in the field have to deal with and face is different. And I threw this out there as just an interesting case, right? Where we've got in that again over in the right hand side, that's a wood shear wall that's actually in a multifamily project out in California, and you can see that basically that solid chunk of timber that's needed there as part of the boundary elements, or basically the compression forces that are coming down from the the shear wall system that's built in there. Now all of a sudden, the electrical contractor has to come through and say, hey, by the way, we need a switch here. And so we're stuck in this dilemma about, well, okay, we needed these structural members in order to receive some engineering capacity, some things that are required there. And obviously, people in the building would like lights. They would like switches, at least until everything is completely smart home, down the road. But it's a case of those are some of the challenges that we see, and why we then invent solutions around that. And we say, well, right, steel in many cases, if it can integrate in with wood, but we can take advantage of the strength of steel compared to wood, that opens up some things that not only meets the design requirements, but then also meets some of those other constructability requirements that maybe a framing contractor doesn't have to worry about, but a general contractor making sure that electrical sub is able to do their job does have to worry about. And that goes back to that offsite piece. All of that stuff being able to be coordinated and collaborated up front, and we find the right systems as part of the early stage that really address the entire life cycle of the project. Now all of a sudden these projects really can move fast when they actually get out to the on site and we start assembling things.
Sure.
So just want to throw that out there. It's just something that we see. That's a case that goes back to your points, Dave, about how does MiTek look to engage with the marketplace. That's something that framers bring that to us and say, hey guys, what am I supposed to do in this particular case? And we say, well, we do have some things that can help in those scenarios. Maybe not in this project because we're a little far down the road, but as we're thinking about the next one and how we attack it, make sure to keep us engaged.
So let me ask you this then. I have a problem on site. I decide, or the manufacturer, and we're trying to make the spans we need to make, or get the opening size we need, or seismic loads, whatever the case is. How are your products certified? So if I know I'm going to put these in, the building inspector is not going to give me a hard time. Is it like mechanical HVAC where they just open the manual and it's already pre-approved and they just certify it, or
yeah,
how does the education happen?
No, very good question. And the majority of our products, yes, they have full code approvals that someone, it's literally go look in the catalog. If it's in the catalog, there's the required testing and everything that's already been done on those from a code approval perspective. So that's one that puts all the building officials at ease with regards to knowing, okay, this is something that comes into play. We also have some others, right, that maybe get a little bit more customized, and that's again where we're maybe working a little bit more in concert with the design professional. That ultimately it might be, let's say, a moment frame that's using our side plate technology, which is a way of building a special moment frame that's needed for a particular geometry and particular instance out of the marketplace. We wouldn't necessarily have a code approval on that particular frame. That's where we work with the design professional, and ultimately they're coming up with the solution using our technology that then may be sealed by them, and that is the approval that the building official would use for acceptance on the project. Does that help, Dave? Does that?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, it's just the service part is there, is what you're saying. So whether it's an off-the-shelf solution that's tried and true and you've done over and over again, or if it's something that you've come up with to solve a particular problem, you have the people there to help whoever is using the product pass the codes and do everything that needs to be done, especially with 1,000 engineers. You should be.
I'll literally give you one quick example. Like just recently, we actually engaged on that and modified some of our code reports to meet a condition that was needed for a new project that was being worked on. And we did that in concert with the design professional, as well as with the code officials, as well as with the testing agency officials, so that everybody is coordinated there about saying, hey, this is how we're seeing it. This is the change whether we're going to be making to support what the industry's trying to do. Everybody good? Everybody's good. So now we're off and running. So
yeah, no, perfect. I mean, that's what it is. It's that collaboration I always talk about. So love it. Okay.
I wanted to just talk through a couple projects in a little bit more detail, and you tell me, time-wise, what we have there in order to use. But this is one that when we talk about offsite, there's that concept of we know things get built in a factory, but then what does that actually result in? This is a project out in California from earlier this year. It was one that used our cold form frames, so you can see those being lifted off the truck over there. So they came out to the site. In this particular case, they were assembled delivered to the site. Literally, the contractor was lifting them off of the semi and placing them on the foundation where they needed to be in their permanent position. Okay, they also could do some staging of them for some different levels and stuff like that, but literally picking off and placing. This project also was one that included wall panels that were used to handle all the vertical walls as part of it. You can see those on the next truck over. And then this one happened to be mass plywood, was what the floor and the roof ended up being a combination of. All of it was very strategically selected because job site conditions were very tight with regard to how we could handle logistics, and schedule was something that they were very focused on achieving. And so you can see what the results are, right? The combination of all these different products and approaches, means and methods of how to, go about building these things, shave 2 months off of the construction schedule on this one, right? A floor, and you can see the building over there in the bottom right corner. So again, not a massive multifamily project, but a floor every 4 days being done, right? It's not done, but now we have to come back in later and pull some pins to activate a threaded rod system or install some double-sided plywood on shear walls, anything like that. It's done and being able to walk away. That's something very important to the contractor as part of this. 34% savings in just the structural framing cost, right? I mean, that for itself. Now, is that material savings? Now that's saying by the time the project is done and we look at the total cost of what's going on there, that's the savings. And that's one thing from the industry I think that we're still working our way through is people look at offsite and they say, well, it's more expensive. And it may be if you look at just one slice of the overall project, but when you look at the total cumulative effect, now all of a sudden to shave a couple months off that construction schedule, that building is up in operation faster, that has a lot of material value to the ownership of that building. So those are some things that people are really starting to pay attention to. And let's be honest, there's just a lot of BIM coordination on this, right? Making sure when things showed up, we knew how they were going to fit. So,
well, all right, Dave's soapbox. Are you ready for my soapbox? I'm on my soapbox. Listen, offsite construction is a better way of building, right? People always want to try and compare costs and this and that. Personally, it should be more expensive. It's better, period. It should be, but that's not reality when it comes to actually how people look at things. Everybody's always looking at their pocketbook. And if people would actually look at the full life cycle of a project, not just material costs, in the long run, it's going to come out less, especially when you get into these large commercial projects where they are not spending their contingency fund because they didn't have a $2 million overrun. These are some of the things that people don't look at. And what you're saying in this, if I hear you correct, is we're making products that help you as a builder be more efficient in what you do. It's safer when you use our products. The job site's faster, the job site's cleaner, there's less waste on the job site. There's all these things that are hard to mathematically take into account when you're comparing apples to apples. So, I mean, this is where the 2 months comes off. I mean, what you're saying is, hey, listen, we've taken all this engineering, we've lightened the load, we're using our product, and it is going to fit exactly the way it needs to fit, which is going to save time and money off what you're doing. Is that accurate?
You got it. And that's that case of, when you think about, errors that happen on site and the cost that introduces into a project, both from a schedule perspective as well as just material costs, how do we make sure that those we just eliminate? They still may happen on every project, right? It's construction at some point. But how do we make sure to minimize that so there are very few that we actually have to deal with on site? Because once they get on site, it's expensive. The way I used to describe it, Dave, is it's a case when I did more on the software end was, electrons are pretty cheap. So it's like if you can go through and have something digitally created and have all the kinks worked out before you start building, that's a whole lot cheaper than trying to work out the kinks with saws and hammers and material on site. So
100%. Love it.
And this was another example that I wanted to put together. And again, the components used were similar in some front, but again, different in some levels as well. This is another multifamily project out in the San Francisco Bay Area as well. This is one that when I refer back to those comments earlier about being 6 weeks early, this is the project. So you look at the size of that and, the bottom right corner of how that's coming together, massive project. And you can see, tower crane on site to lift those components in place, to get them staged, to then go through and build, the level of coordination that's needed between a component manufacturer, between a framing contractor, a general contractor, design professionals, this one working very closely again with an engineering firm out in California that actually was working with the building ownership to say, we're going to change from a traditional wood shear wall system over to something that uses this MiTek cold form steel frames.
Right.
Because of some of those project values that we're going after. We're trying to cut down schedule on this project to reduce that. We're trying to get things so that we can have parallel schedules where we can have, subcontractors in maybe earlier, because we aren't having to come back through and do as much double-sided plywood shear wall, where we have a lot of logistics just in staging between trades that are needed.
Right.
Those are all things that the contractors as well, the ownership, were trying to say, hey, we want to look at doing a different approach here. So the design professionals, absolutely, let us know how we can help, and then MiTek helped and supported them on that. So, and these are what the results look like. So.
Well, and this is that hybrid approach that I keep harping on too. I mean, this is where wood and metal come together, just like SIPs and modular and everything else, right? There's all these hybrid opportunities to build better, and this is exactly what it's showing right here.
Absolutely. And it really comes down to understanding up front what's going to be the right solution, right? So not just going with a product because maybe it's what we used on the previous 10 projects, but really understanding what's unique about what this project needs to do, and what are the solutions that we need to be including in order to help it succeed. So, yep, completely agree.
For sure. Perfect.
Awesome. Well,
people agree with me this much.
Well, I can be more argumentative if you'd like, but
no, I'm enjoying it.
The beautiful thing is when you see people that are really understanding that how we keep pushing things forward, right? There's often a whole lot more synergy that exists, and that comes into that case from a MiTek perspective. For us, it's all about collaboration, and if there isn't collaboration that's happening as part on a project or across the industry, then we're going to continue to struggle to really advance it. And that's something that I hope people understand from a MiTek perspective, is we are all about that collaboration piece and making sure that we're understanding who has what value that can be added in, and where are the holes in linking things together, and how do we fill those holes, right? How do we help in connecting some of those dots together to help the overall process? And that's just one of those things. It's, for us, it's about serving the industry through collaboration, and ultimately, helping, with the unique skill sets that we have in products and stuff. How do we just keep pushing this industry forward? Right. So that's, Dave, that's really what I wanted to try to run through and share as part of this session. So.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's absolutely great, and I think we have some comments to get through and some questions. But the big takeaway before we get to all of this is you're just not a steel provider. I mean, you're an engineering service. You're a service provider. You're a problem. You're a problem solver. Right? There's all kinds of things that you guys are doing. I mean, even on the software side and the automation side, you're looking at it from an end-to-end perspective, not just a certain area. And I think that's what adds so much value to what MiTek's doing.
Nope, you got it. You got it. Yep. And it's really stitching everything together is where the true value lies, not anything, by itself. So. Yeah,
for sure. All right, let's hop into this here. Let me scroll down a few. Oh boy, we got some people tuning in for sure. All right. Judy Donnell. Do you know Judy Donnell? If you don't, you should. Everybody should know Judy Donnell. Hello, Dave. Greetings from Asheville, North Carolina. Judy Donnell is the head chair of all the associate members at the National Association of Home Builders. So she gets to work with all 88,000, I think it's 88,000, she'll correct me, but it's like 80,000 plus members. And Judy gets to be part of knowing all of them and helping them along. So awesome. I love it when Judy tunes in. Thanks, Judy. She made a comment. Congrats to Joe Knapel, MiTek Senior VP of Sales, on your retirement after 50 years. Hey, big shout out for 50 years, Joe.
Joe is awesome, and it's a case of we celebrate everything that he has meant to the industry, and then just is so happy for him about being able to move on to that next stage and stuff. So I've had a chance to work with Joe over the years. A great guy, fantastic guy.
Perfect. All right, Judy, thanks. Always love it. All right, Joel Hutchins. I knew he'd have a question about computational design and kit of parts approach, helping you to streamline this essentially front-end design process.
Yeah, so good question. And again, you're probably thinking of a very specific scenario. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break that down and say when it comes to a lot of our software solutions and what we do, that computational design piece, right there, there's really two elements that factor in. And one is from an analysis side about saying from a loads or a force, a engineering approach, how do we make sure that we're designing something that truly meets the building code requirements? That's something that our software does on an individual component basis. So when I say software on that front, I'm speaking more to the platform that is referred to, our MiTek Sapphire, whether it's structure, whether it's supply, or some of the tool sets that go around those, really helping to service our material suppliers and our component manufacturers and working through the design things that they have. We go through and help on that front from an analysis standpoint. And then we also go through on that kit of parts. When I say kit of parts, it's a case of we have to get to that spot where we know down to each piece. And I'm going to use an example of a wall panel. At some point when we're having to drive machinery out on a shop floor, we can't just generically say it's 2x4s at 16 on center, right? We actually have to know each piece, no matter how small, that someone's going to have to install and make that component on the field. That's what our software does, is it really dives down into those details. And on that kit of parts, it's like now different business models can emerge and they can say, well, we're going to use a different size Lego brick. Our Lego brick maybe is a modular unit, right? Our Lego brick might be a wall panel. Our Lego brick may be a subcomponent, meaning a junction or just an opening assembly. When you have that digital model from a software perspective, now you can start slicing that down, and there's different business models that can come out of it that serve very specific purposes out in the industry. So right. I hope that helps. I don't know if I'm answering the question exactly, but that's what I would say in response to that about how our software really fits into that particular piece.
Well, Joe has a complex mind, and that was a complex answer. So my guess is he'll be able to sort through it and probably have a comment for you down below. So, perfect. All right, here we go. We got Henry Mickelberg. It appears that you're coming up with a multitude of various bespoke solutions. How do you capture the knowledge for future projects?
Yeah, and that's Henry, it's a very good thing. And I guess the analogy I use on that front is collecting data. There's a many ways of collecting data. The true value is, what do you do with the data once you have it? MiTek has taken the approach of, we actually have a team of data scientists that are on staff that are working to go through and help collect that data, and then also figure out how it fits into the industry. And a lot of times we learn as much as anything as part of that. And so it's something that we go through, and we have groups of people that actually are specifically focused on learning from projects and then figuring out how to apply that. A lot of that it's organic too, right? As you help customers, no matter whether it's an engineer, whether it's a framing contractor, general contractor, component manufacturer, as you help them through a challenge, that's one of the greatest opportunities to learn, is just based on that. So there's a lot of it that happens organically, but MiTek does really understand the value of larger data sets and how we look to process through that. So
awesome. Thanks, Henry, man. Appreciate the question. Love it. All right, we got Craig Campbell. Agree, offsite reduces overall build time.
Yep.
Follow up from Henry Mickelberg. If you have a large program of works, offsite is definitely less expensive. Okay. Joel's busy today too. Touching on the good old debate of CAPEX versus OPEX of a project. I guess it's CAPEX versus OPEX of a project. There, Dave Cooper. That is how that's a show by itself. All right, we'll work on that one. So thank you. Hey, John Magnan is joining from Boise. How are you? Hi, Dave and Steve. Great to see you. Do you know John Magnan from Boise?
I'm sorry, the name.
Everybody should know John Magnan.
You should put me on the spot like that. You're going to make me.
I know. I love it. Well, listen, I mean, there's definitely a whole chatter going on in the sidebar here as well, Steve. So listen, I told you it'd be the fastest hour. It's already going on 55 minutes.
Yep.
Like that. I love it. I love it. All right, Steve. So if you were to sum up what MiTek does in just a few words as a way to just let everybody know that's tuned in right now, just sum it up for us. You got some words of wisdom before we move on our merry ways today?
Words of wisdom would be, what we're about is that those things, better technology, better building, right? That's a phrasing that really does describe it well. I guess what I would say is just always, when you think of MiTek, think about people that want to serve the construction industry and help continue to advance it. And I would leave it that broad, because there's nothing in the construction industry that we would shy away from helping and jumping in to understand. It's not just compartmentalized just to trust us or anything else. It's like we really are truly want to serve the industry in any way we can. I'd say it that way, Dave, if that's good.
I love it. Well, you know what? It's a servant approach, and that's what it has to be collaborative and move things forward. And I think that's great. So let me throw a few things out there. Listen, we have our 3 p.m. show coming up in 1 hour and 4 minutes from now. So join us live on location as we do a house raising with Benson Wood and Unity Homes, who chooses Benson Wood as their panelization process. And then Thursday, you'll see it in the ticker below, we have Spencer Powell on, for radio host and founder of Builder Funnel, marketing services for the modern builder. He will be joining us on Increasing Influence with Miles Biggs tomorrow, Thursday. And then Friday, we are back into building science with Mark Barenaked Willie. And we're going to be talking about sustainable buildings and places with architect Doug Farr, one of the leaders in this industry as well. So I love everything that we've been talking about. I really appreciate MiTek taking the time to come on. It's not like you guys are busy. Are you?
Yeah, the industry's kind of slow right now, is what I've heard. So that's
right. That's a joke. Okay, well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Steve, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us today. And everybody else that had comments and questions, we appreciate you very much. Please hit that like and share button one last time. I'm Dave Cooper. We will see you at 3 p.m. We will see you at 1 p.m. again tomorrow. We'll see you next time. Steve, you hang tight right there. We'll wrap up after the show here.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave.
Bye now.